It's not okay.
Okay.
It's not okay at all.
I thought you were going to cut back on cussing.
I thought so too.
No, I do. I do need to be careful. I do need to be careful, man.
You want to throw the cans on, Mark?
Yeah, they used to happen. My football coach all the time. He would come to practice and he'd be like, "Boys, my wife said I need to stop cussing," and he could never, you know, it would last for a couple weeks
Yeah.
or a day, and then he'd slip back into it.
I can't slip back in. Mom's been watching all of our episodes.
Really?
Yeah.
So why do you have such a dirty mouth?
Like, no, you remember the Kenny KO episode?
Yeah.
So she's like, "Oh, who is this Kenny KO?" I'm like, "Oh, wait, you know what? Don't watch that. Watch this one with Bedros Keuilian." like, I was like, "Do not watch that episode."
Yeah. My
Oh my goodness.
my aunt the other day.
She's
she
like,
was,
"Why do you poop yourself?" She's got a lot of questions about it from the podcast.
Yeah,
You're a grown man.
my aunt hit me with something pretty specific, and I'm like, "Oh, you not only do you watch, but you listen like." Oh, like, I hope you didn't catch that one episode where Mark was talking about how many dicks I sucked or something. Like, it's just not good.
Oh God, yeah, man.
My brother was listening to. I was on Mind Pump recently. And my brother was listening to it in the car as he's driving my kids to school, and then I'm talking about my kids, so they're listening. They're like, they didn't know I don't think they've ever heard any podcast before. And they certainly haven't ever heard mine. So then there I am talking about them, and I'm like, I just want my kids to not grow up to be dicks. And they're like, kind of, I think they kind of liked it, but they were kind of kind of confused on even why I'm talking about it. I guess they're like, shit. Everything we do at home is not private. I guess everything's out there in the public. Tyler, you've been listening to the show for a while, huh?
Oh yeah. Every time always have a famous person on.
Yeah.
So I'm always interested.
When did you start listening to the show?
Probably the last 2 years or so
Yeah.
is when I really, got aware of it. Mm-hmm.
Cool. And you live here in Sacramento?
Yeah, I live in Roseville.
And then have you been aware of super training, because you're into bodybuilding, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
So
so I've been hearing about, you and your gym ever since I really started following the podcast more, and I met Nsima. Mm-hmm.
Cool. How'd you get into lifting?
Let's see. Originally, I did powerlifting. Originally, I started powerlifting my first year out of high school. That was for, Paralympic powerlifting, obviously. I was trying to make the Paralympic team. So I went for that for 2007 to 2012. And then after that, just continued with jiu-jitsu and all the rest of the things.
Yeah.
So.
And the Paralympics is actually really hard, and they're really strict on how you do the movement and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm unfamiliar with what you competed in exactly, but some stuff that I've seen, they're super strict. Say for example, for bench press, they have the guy unrack the weight. The guy's got to hold the weight forever, and then they say start, and then the guy holds the weight on his chest for looks like a 3 count, and they say press, and then the guy presses it up, and then they wait for you to have a totally even lockout, and then they say rack. Is that the kind of stuff you were doing?
So when I was doing it, they didn't have any commands. They just went off of you. You knew what the rules were, so you follow the rules. You unrack it, you come down, you pause, and you lock it out, and then there was all the rules of did you pause long enough on your chest? Did you go up even? All the little things, and then you rack it, and then usually there was always some debate on did you pause long enough on your chest or did you come up slightly uneven, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I saw there was a guy, I can't remember what country he's from, but he did a 683-pound bench, something just astronomical. I'm sure you've seen it yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy to watch, especially when the heavyweights come out.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy's so damn strong. But they have him strapped down to the bench. I'm not sure what the deal is with his legs, but it looks like he doesn't have full use of his legs. His legs are smaller, but he has legs. And then they strap him to the bench, and then he's got to hold the weight there forever. And I'm like, this guy's got enough things going on. Why are they so strict on the way that these guys lift? But I guess they're just trying to have some good standards in there, huh?
Yeah, and they strap your legs down to the bench, and you can use I think up to 3 straps to strap your legs down, and then you go. So I always liked it because I felt more secure on the bench. It always made me think about less with the stability, I guess. But they're really, they're just as strict as everybody else. So.
And then, what were you born with? Was it's spina bifida? Is that what it is?
Spina bifida.
And what is that?
I don't know how to, describe it in, perfect scientific terms, but like my spine wasn't fully developed. So day one, I had a hole in my spine. They had to fix that up. And then over the next like 3 years, I'd have to ask my parents. I think I had like 7, 8, 9 surgeries, something like that, mostly on my feet. My feet were like turning inward. And I actually had I had this really unusual surgery. This was, 30 years ago. They took my adductors and abductors and switched them. So they flew in, some doctor from like Australia or something, because he's one of the few guys that knew how to do it. And
Did it work?
yeah, it worked. Yep. So yeah, I have some friends who didn't have that surgery done, and now their legs are really tight.
Wow.
And now I don't have to deal with that. I don't have any leg problems or anything, and I can drive with my legs. I have my quads. But so it saved me from a lot of problems down the road.
Any idea what the thinking is on that?
Yeah, I don't know what all the science is behind all of it, but
Yeah, that's fucking wild. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, me neither.
yeah, it's been cool. Like now being a personal trainer today and just knowing more about the body, it's been cool to find out what they did to me. And like, what do some of these scars on my legs mean?
Yeah.
Oh, they took my adductors and abductors and switched them. I never even heard of that. And then finding out, what is spina bifida, like what is it related to, all that kind of stuff. It's been really interesting.
What were the surgeries for? Were the surgeries to try to make you more functional, or were the surgeries for pain, or were they for aesthetics?
No, I think they were mostly for functionality. Just I have some friends like their legs they always experience cramps, and they're not flexible at all in their legs. Now I am. I mean, I can leg press, I can leg extension, I can use my legs to an extent in jiu-jitsu. I can drive off with my quads and everything. So I don't have any leg pain. I don't have any of those kind of problems. So it saved me from all that stuff that some other people experience. But
you must have some really cool supportive parents, because to have the confidence to go and do these things is difficult enough. And then you having difficulties and having so many surgeries at such a young age, were your parents always encouraging you? They're always supportive of you trying different things, or were they also kind of like, hey, like, be careful,
Yeah, no, I would say both. They were extremely encouraging, and they saw how much I was into, I'd always tackle my friends, and I watched WWE when I was a kid, and
hell yeah,
I remember jumping off the table onto my friend, and so I was always, I was a typical guy, like I was a boy,
right.
So I was always into all those kinds of things. So they supported it, and then when I got into wrestling, that's when they're like, okay, we're gonna let you do it, but we're nervous. You're going into fighting sports, And then, then it goes into high school, and like, okay, they hit harder in high school, and and then when I went into jiu-jitsu, which is strangling each other and hyperextending limbs, then they're like, okay, how far are you going to go with this? So, but they never not let me do something, but they were nervous along the way, but they just trusted me, and after a while, they saw that I could do it.
How was the wrestling? Yeah. Like when you got into wrestling, how did that start for you, and like how did you progress there?
That was 7th grade when I started, and mainly it started because I was watching WWF, and I was wrestling with my friends in the living room all the time. And then my stepdad,
We're talking like John Cena, Stone Cold,
Oh, yeah.
The Rock.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Who's your favorite?
All of it. I loved all of them. I feel like I was in the kind of one of the golden eras of wrestling in the early '90s when The Rock was cutting his best promos, and now I go back and I love that stuff because like, dang, that was the golden era.
Yeah. I know.
So,
I miss that too. And like with all the stuff that I see The Rock do now, I'm always like, oh man, that's really cool. But nothing will ever be cooler to me than the shit that he did in the ring. It was so fun and so entertaining.
Yeah, something will pop up on social media and it's an old Rock promo. And I'm like, that's golden. No one's gonna match that. He was so like on his game, and then Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, all of them. So I loved it back then.
The Rock would come with something new every time, like just like a lot of the other wrestlers. He had his catchphrases and stuff, but. He had new material every single time, and you're like, how does he do that?
Yeah, he was so sharp, and he was so confident. He was so committed on the microphone.
He had a $500 shirt.
Yeah, he was so into character on the microphone. Like, there was just confidence, and it was great. But anyways, so it started off just with me watching that, and I loved it. So I'd jump off things onto my friends, and then my stepdad said, hey, you should actually try wrestling. I wrestled a little back in the day, and you should try it. So I went out, and at first I hated it because we did nothing but conditioning. We ran around the blacktop a million times, and they were, doing that for the first month. Then we finally got on the mat. That's when I started to love it. I'm like, okay, we actually get to go at it with each other. And I think I won my first wrestle off, which is, fighting for the varsity spot or the JV spot, whatever. After I won my first match, I loved it. I'm like, okay, like I'm far from the best at it, but I can do this. Like, just give me some time. I'll figure it out, So that's how it all started. So then I wrestled from 7th grade to my first year of college, started jiu-jitsu my junior year of high school, and then eventually got into powerlifting, eventually got into bodybuilding. It's all kind of faded together.
Wow. You started jiu-jitsu pretty young, like compared to, I guess, most people.
Yeah, I started, junior year of high school. So,
Wow.
Okay. How'd your coaches take to it when you were like trying out for the team? Were they pretty receptive, or what were their thoughts?
I don't know. I think about that now. They never let me see any kind of doubt or whatever. I think they just kind of, go for it. I don't know if they actually believed in me from day one. Who knows, But I just was kind of off in my own world trying to figure out.
This is what he wants to do. Let's see if he can hang, see if he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I just do what I still do. I sit on the side, and maybe the jiu-jitsu instructor or the wrestling coach teaches something, and then I sit there and think about it, and like, okay, how can I modify that? How can I do that with my arms? Okay, this is when you do the move, this is what happens with his body. This is how the leverage works. How do I recreate that with different body parts, with my head and my hands, not my legs? So I just always was just being analytical about it, and I failed a million times before I figured out a handful of moves that worked, but that's how life works, right?
Yesterday we talked a little bit about like race and how like Nsima was mentioning in a certain area, and he was like, we're the only, him and his girlfriend, like, we're the only black people within 50 miles, I think, And I would imagine that, that sometimes that feels different or feels uncomfortable, or maybe you're thinking like that other people are looking at you. You're different, and how does that feel? And do you want people to like recognize it? You want people to ignore it? Because I think a lot of people are kind of uncomfortable. Like if you are walking down the street and you happen to recognize that guy has no arm, you might kind of do like a double take, right? And then you're like, fuck, I didn't mean to. You're like, I don't know if that was rude, or or do I say good morning like I would to fucking anybody else? Like, how do you feel? Being different. You are in a wheelchair, and there's not everybody else on the streets in a wheelchair. You just want to be treated, I would imagine, just like anybody else, right?
I mean, I think that's the responsibility of the handicapped person. You're the one that needs to make people comfortable. You're the one that needs to earn the respect. You're the one that, I've seen some people like in the handicapped community where they'll complain that, well, no one believes in me. No one, gives me a chance, whatever. And like, well, yeah, of course they're going to doubt you. I didn't go into wrestling or jiu-jitsu thinking people were going to believe in me. You have to earn the respect, and, you have to show them that, you can do it. But don't like just expect them to believe in you for no reason. Of course they're going to doubt you. So just expect it, and you take that responsibility. Don't expect it,
Do you think you need to go a little above and beyond than maybe what somebody else might do?
Yeah. I mean, I think you need to maximize yourself, and set a high standard on yourself. Like, don't assume you know where your limit is. I mean, my dream has always been, top level for everything. I don't know if it's possible for me to catch up to Cassio in skill level, but I'm going to find out, and I'm not going to assume that I can't. There's no blueprint for me to follow. There's been very few handicapped people that have succeeded against able-bodied people. There has been a couple of cases, but, not a whole lot for me to follow like a blueprint. But I'm not going to assume that I can't. So I'm going to do the best I can in every single sport that I've done. Like, how far can I push it? Can I catch up to an elite level with able-bodied people? And I mean, I want to find out.
Is it ever in terms of jiu-jitsu? Is it ever an advantage to?
That's a really debatable one. That's an interesting one because every disability is different. And so a good example is that Anthony Robles. Either of you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Right? So one leg NCAA champion. When he was losing,
you can't do a double leg takedown on him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right.
When he was losing, it was, oh, poor him, he has a disadvantage. As soon as he started figuring it out, it's like, that's such an advantage.
That's
he should
cheating.
be kicked out of wrestling.
Yeah.
Like, wow. As soon as he starts beating you.
Right.
Yeah.
Really? Well, so I think the truth is, depending on what your disability is, it can be an advantage and a disadvantage. Depends on what position we're talking about. Think about using jiu-jitsu terminology. You're doing like a knee cut guard pass, and then your ankle gets caught, right? And then they're working a half guard. If you don't have an ankle, you're just going to slip through that.
Yeah.
So in certain positions, if you're missing a limb or something, in certain ways it can be an advantage, and in other ways, obviously, it's a big disadvantage. So I think it kind of works out to, 50-50 or 60-40. Probably in the, the disadvantage is the 60. But yeah, so.
And you have like, is it supports on your legs or?
Yeah, just braces. Yeah. So with my braces, I'll put on up to 3 knee pads on both sides, and then my wrestling shoes. And that's what I've always done for wrestling and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And the knee pads are to probably protect the other person, right?
Protect the other guy.
Because they'll get nicked up from them pretty bad, right?
Yeah. So that's just to protect the other person. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And then what about like when you get weighed in? You have to you just weigh in the way you are.
Yeah. Well, I take everything off and I hop on. So there's been different.
They make you weigh in with the braces on or no?
No, actually, well, I've had to learn the rules about that. At first, I thought I had to with jiu-jitsu because there's the whole thing about weighing with your gi on, weighing with everything on. Then eventually, one of my friends who's a black belt told me, "Hey, your braces are considered protective wear, just like a shoulder pad or something like that. So you don't have to weigh in with that." So I took all that off, and that decreased 10 pounds from me. I'm like,
Weight class?
I'm going down a weight class. Yeah, like just off. I didn't know that because I was a blue belt. I don't know
yeah.
anything. So the black belts, are like, hey, like that counts as protective wear.
Yeah,
That
I'm not
doesn't-
sure what the rules are in powerlifting, but I think people have to weigh in if they have like a prosthetic. I think they have to weigh in with the prosthetic. So if they had like say like a prosthetic leg and they're bench pressing,
Yeah.
I think they whatever they're gonna like wear on the platform, they're supposed to like weigh with, I guess. Something like that.
Yeah. So then with me, I'm like, okay, it's not a prosthetic. It's just something on my small leg, So I've always had to find out what are the rules with my different sports I've done.
When did you first do your first jiu-jitsu competition?
I think when I was a blue belt, I might have done one competition when I was a white belt, maybe. But yeah, like late white belt or early blue belt days.
And how did that go for you? Like, I know obviously you grappled before with wrestling.
Yeah, I had years of wrestling before that. So.
Yeah. So did you find that like when you entered it into jiu-jitsu, was it like, I guess competing, was it easier for you than like, how'd you do in your first few competitions?
I remember my very first one was just in this little garage, it was a little hole in the wall tournament that everybody does at some point. And I won that match, and it was the only match I had that day. And it felt pretty natural for me because I had all the years of wrestling. It was just, okay, different rule set, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. Okay. And then also in terms of, I guess, as you progressed, I think you were the first individual to do Fight to Win.
Oh, yeah.
And like, how did that go?
That was cool.
Yeah.
that was crazy with all the lights. The production is second to none, you know? So I was the first para athlete or whatever you want to say to do Fight to Win. And then we fought to a draw, I guess, or he won by judge's decision. We went the full 10 minutes or whatever it was. But yeah, that was crazy. And that was really hard to find an opponent. That's an issue, is nobody wants to fight me. So
why do you think that is? Partially like because they have a lot of individuals in your weight class. Were people like, did you have people lined up and they were just like, no, I don't want to do it? Or
oh yeah, no. Well, Seth Daniels, who runs it, I think he said he asked 10 to 15 people before someone said yes. And I think that's really, because they're looking at it like, what's in it for me? If I win, I beat a handicap kid. If I lose, I lost to a handicap kid in front of all of Sacramento.
Yeah.
So they're looking at it like, I'm not getting anything out of this. So I don't blame them, but it is frustrating because, it was amazing. I'd love to do
find
this.
stuff like that in sports to be really strange because, like, isn't it just simply about getting better?
You would think.
And so, like, if I go against you, and I would be pissed if I lost. I'd be like, shit, It wouldn't have anything to do with you being handicapped. I would just be like, fuck, man, the guy's more skilled than me, or I shouldn't have got caught in that move. And then I would think, like, I would talk to Nsima, or I'd talk to a coach and be like, man, like, watch this tape, man. I need to get better. Like, what this guy do? How'd this guy get me in this hold? Like, that's all it would be about for me. It doesn't make sense that people would think in those terms. I think it's a weird way to think.
I think that's the difference between someone who's good at any sport and then someone who reaches your level. Someone who's like humble enough to just constantly keep going back to whoever they look up to and like, how do I get better? But they get caught up in their own ego, or fame or whatever. They get caught up in stuff that they shouldn't be caught up in.
Are there some things when you were young that it was frustrating because you maybe just had trouble doing, or did you always just figure out a way to kind of do just about anything that you ever wanted to, like maybe like let's say play baseball or football or do something that some other kids were doing that for at that point you had a hard time doing?
Yeah, I think that's part of the game. Whenever you're with a disabled life, I guess that's part of the game is frustration. And I talked to plenty of other people in different situations, whether they were born with their disability or they were in a car accident, and it's your perspective on life. It's how are you willing to be frustrated, or do you give up when you get frustrated? So I've been frustrated billions of times. I've been tapped out in jiu-jitsu a million times. I've been pinned in wrestling a million times. So that's just part of the game, is overcoming that. I'd say just like everybody else, but but we probably fail more than the average person. But how stubborn are you?
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to. And eventually I've been stubborn enough to where I'm still here, and now I'm hanging in there with the brown belts. And I remember when I was a white belt or a blue belt, I didn't know how far I could take it. I didn't know, is it possible for me to ever really hang in there with a legit purple, brown, black belt or whatever sport I was doing? How far can I take it? And I just kept thinking, like, I don't want to assume. I want to find out, and if that means failing, okay, it means failing, but I don't want to wonder what if. And so I guess that stubbornness and that attitude, well, it's got me to here, and now I'm a brown belt. I'm not on Cassio's level. I'm far from it, but okay, how much farther can I take it? I have no idea. So I want to find out.
You bring up a really good point. Maybe in your case, if you selected particular sport or selected a particular thing that you really had a hard time doing as a kid, maybe it would just take you longer.
Yeah.
Maybe it would just take you twice as long. Maybe it would take you 5 times as long, or maybe it'd take you 10 times as long. But if you stuck with it, you'd eventually, hopefully get to where you want to be. And it would be just like a lot of other people's journey, except for they're not starting out in the same position. Maybe it came a little easier to them when they went to play basketball, or if they wanted to train for a marathon or something like that.
Yeah, people they don't like to do things that other people haven't done. I was just listening to you guys talk on another episode where you're talking about the 4-minute mile. As soon as somebody did it, then everybody did it, right? So I think people love to do that. They love to, someone else has to do it first, and then they'll believe. I'm like, that's how we ever going to move forward in life? How's anything ever going to progress with that attitude? So I want to find out. I want to find out if I can be the first to figure out handicap jiu-jitsu or handicap wrestling or whatever more than anybody ever has.
Yeah.
And like, I'd love to get on like a John Danaher level, if I could, and just be like really brilliant with my my setups and my systems. But I don't know. I mean, I'll find out, and ask me again in 20 years. We'll see where I'm at. You know what I mean? But I'm trying,
Yeah, that's the thing I want people to understand a lot of, because like you enhanced my jiu-jitsu game so freaking much in terms of like arm bars and kimuras and stuff. Like you've taught me so much, and you tapped me out a bunch. Like I don't know if people realize just like how, number one, good you are, but also how fucking strong you are. Like I remember the first day I rolled with you, and I was like, this is going to be different. You grabbed my wrist, and legit, there's a little voice in me that just went, eep. Because when you grabbed it, like you engulfed it, and then you I don't know. You
got
just
some beefy forearms over there.
You absolutely wrecked me. And I was like, oh God, this is fucking amazing. Like he's going to teach me so much. And you did. And like whenever I've like drilled with you, like when you were talking about Cassio doing something and you adapt it, it's just like, it's insane what you come up with, but it's just because of all the absolute training you've done.
And yeah, and just following concepts.
Yeah.
Don't be hell-bent on this is the way you need to do the move. Just what's the concept of the move? Now figure that out. You know what I mean? You can do it a different way, but you're accomplishing the same concept. That's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? So
it's just such a deep understanding. Like it's so awesome being able to roll with you.
And I've just tried to get as many like private lessons as I could, and seminars or whatever. I've looked up videos, and I just try to get as much knowledge as I can, so I can create, with other people's knowledge. Just that's why I'm at Cassio's too, because like he's the best in Sacramento.
Yeah.
So
what are the limitations of your legs, if there are any?
So I mean, I got my quads. I can do leg press. I can do leg extension, all that kind of stuff. I don't really have hamstring strength. I have adduction, but I don't really have abduction. And then my lower back is okay. I don't have zero strength in my lower back, but it's not real strong. I have full core strength, and then from there up, everything else is normal.
Something like a deadlift. Would you be able to do a deadlift?
To an extent, like a weak one, yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, my lower back is, somewhere in the middle. It's not weak, but it's not strong. It's somewhere in the middle.
And then, do you? I haven't seen you compete. When you compete, are you standing, or are you?
I'm on my knees.
You're starting on the ground. Okay.
Yeah, I'm starting on my knees.
And then with your actual legs, like, can somebody put you in a leg lock?
I'd say that's usually kind of an honor code system. Just don't do that.
Oh,
I see.
Okay.
That's how it's always been in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Here and there, I've been at like an open mat, and somebody who doesn't know me would do it. So that's
so you can
been a little awkward.
So you can move your quads, and you can move your hips. There's limitation to the hamstrings, and then from the knee down, you can't move your feet and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
I can't move my feet.
Okay.
I have my my hip flexors. That actually is something I've realized I've used a lot in jiu-jitsu. When I go to teach other handicapped people, when I go to teach Lisa, she's another person at our jiu-jitsu academy in a wheelchair, I'll realize certain muscles that are active on me that are not on someone else with a different disability. So in fighting purposes, I use my quads and my hip flexors a lot, just for a lot of different small tactics and creating momentum, moving myself, whipping myself one way or another. So.
And just if you needed to, can you stand?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I could walk with crutches. I just don't because the wheelchair is lazier.
You got your feet kind of crossed behind you, huh?
Yeah, that's always been natural to me.
Yeah.
Can't even really tell you why. That's just something I've always done. It felt natural when I was 3, so I just kind of stuck with it, and now it doesn't feel right to do it any other way.
Yeah.
So.
Shit, man, I'd be watching tapes of you if I was going against you, and I'd be like, fuck, man.
No, he did. He told me afterwards.
This guy's like, because I mean, you know, getting down low and stuff is like a part of all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, I'd be sweating it.
Yeah.
No,
I'd be like, I don't know what to do against this guy.
Yeah, the guy at Fight to Win, he told me afterwards that, yeah, I looked you up and I knew like some of your stuff that you've taught at seminars, and so I was watching out for that.
What do you think one of the main things for you is that helped your jiu-jitsu game the most? Like, was it just super important that you learned how to fight on your back, or like, I mean, I'm sure, you know, each person in jiu-jitsu has to learn the guard and stuff like that, but like for you specifically, with what you have going on, what do you think was the most important thing?
That's hard to narrow down. It's just been everything. It's been just learning as much as I can from the best people that I can, just doing all kinds of private lessons and dropping in at other academies and just getting everybody's input on what should I do. And I guess being very open-minded, not thinking this position is good and this position is bad. Like in wrestling, if you're on your back, there's no way that you're winning, right? You're absolutely losing if you're in wrestling.
Right.
In jiu-jitsu, you're only losing if you're tapping. There's not really such thing as a bad position in jiu-jitsu. And
yeah, this guy kind of got on your back, like what looked like fairly easy, but you just didn't have any concern, and he didn't end up with anything.
No, because like any position that is seen as a bad position in jiu-jitsu, if you get good defense from there and counter offense, you're going to be fine. But a lot of people don't even dive into that. They just they kind of go with traditional jiu-jitsu, where this position's good, this position's bad. If you're in this bad position, you're done. And it's like, well, don't just quit because you got mounted or something, you know?
Right.
And like that's what people do. So I've kind of dove into some other positions, bottom side control, these things from my back. See, from here in the video, I mean, that's not a traditional way of protecting yourself from there. But I'm not afraid if he tries to throw in his legs there and get some kind of body triangle on me or something. I'm not afraid of it because the more he engages me, the more I have stuff to work with. What I've had trouble with is people who don't want to engage me. So see here, I'm basically kind of taunting him from here. Like, would you come at me, bro? You know, give me something to work with, you know? But see how he's only giving me like a hand. He's staying decently away from me. And he was being smart with it, you know? He was coming with a smart game plan. But I do a lot of stuff where like I want you to think you're winning. I want you to try to engage me because when you try to engage me, you give me something to work with.
I've seen you do this. You've done this to me.
Yeah, so a lot of my stuff is I want you to think that you're winning, and then as you go to finish me, you expose yourself for my thing, and then now we can have some fun. And sometimes I lose, but it's, you know.
So with somebody that's like of similar level, you're pretty counter. You're gonna counter a lot of stuff. Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any like holds and stuff that people can't get you in? Like is there like would a rear naked choke be normal on you? Like can somebody kick your hips out and extend your hips out and all that kind of stuff?
I'd say, I mean, that's kind of like the start of my jiu-jitsu is getting good defense from everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, in general, I haven't been submitted very many times in competition. If people win, they win by points. But so yeah, that's kind of been the start. Is just since I'm going to be in these bad positions, I need to recognize what's dangerous here. What am I vulnerable to? Look out for it, know how to stop it, and then start looking for counter offense. So I mean, I try to be hard to submit no matter where I am, and then I try to look for what are you giving me as you're attempting to submit me.
Have you had an opportunity to go into like schools and talk to young kids that have that are in wheelchairs and stuff like that? And I mean, I would imagine the response would be crazy. Like to see you doing this kind of stuff must be really being. I mean, it's kind of neat because this is fighting, you know,
Yeah.
and you're like kicking someone's ass. Like
Yeah.
it's not. you're not shooting hoops or something like that. This is like you're kicking someone's butt.
Yeah.
Which that must be really empowering for them.
Yeah, I've been asked to do a number of things over the years. Sometimes it was stopping by and training with one other kid who has some kind of disability, and sometimes it was speaking to a handful of, people. But yeah, I've always been open to, whatever you guys want me to do. If you want me to stop by and teach somebody some things in wrestling or jiu-jitsu, or if you want me to come by and just do a little motivational speech and try to fire them up, I've always been open to it. So
In jiu-jitsu, is there anyone that like you try to emulate, like anyone that like you watched videos of, or you just had to?
Everybody. Because I want to everybody has a different style at that top level, so I want to steal something from everybody and then create my own game. I am a bit more of a fan of like the loose, playful game, the Jeff Glovers, the Gary Tonins,
Okay.
I do like the loose game, and a lot of my best submissions, they're not in traditional positions. They're in these weird scramble situations. I'll create scrambles, and then as you're trying to control the scramble, you give me a limb that I can attack, So I'm not really a smasher. I'm more of a loose game guy, but I try to learn from everybody because there's nobody I can just copy.
Yeah.
There's nobody that set a blueprint for handicap jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean? So
Are there some things that you've done where you're like, oh shit, I didn't know I could do that?
Oh yeah, I mean that's how I've discovered half my stuff is like you're rolling with somebody and you just go primal at some point. You're just figuring things out, and then after the roll, you're like, what the hell did I just do? That worked, or it almost worked.
Yeah.
And then you go back and you're like, and you stop your opponent like, wait, can we go back to that position? What? I almost had you there. What did I miss? Or sometimes you do get them, and it was totally primal. It was totally just instinctual, and then you just I'm writing that down in my notes. You know, I'm gonna keep working on that, and that's been a lot of my stuff. Sometimes somebody would teach me something, but a lot of it was just discovering it in the midst of battle,
You think about, when people are talking about life and they're talking about somebody has like cancer or something, and they use the word fight, or they use the word strong. You got to be strong going into that. And we get strength, a lot of times from lifting, and then fighting, you're doing a lot of these things right here. And people are always talking about, you got to be able to fight through the pain or fight through this or fight through that. What have you learned from jiu-jitsu that kind of helps you on a daily basis, just in your day-to-day that you carry over into maybe just getting up in the morning and getting out of your wheelchair and taking a shower and like doing all these different things that you got to do in a given day?
I'd say more than anything, wrestling is what developed my character because that was more early in life. That was 7th grade to my first year of college, so I was at a really, spongy age, and I had amazing coaches that...
Wrestlers are always mentally strong.
Yeah, those are the
They're
toughest...
always fucking hard to break, man.
No, like we are taught...
Those are tough motherfuckers.
If the bone is not sticking out, what are you complaining about? We are taught that from like... I don't see a bone, so shut the fuck up and get up and roll. So that's what I grew up with, and I was taught that when I was at an impressionable age. So by the time I got to jiu-jitsu, my first couple instructors, they were complimenting me on my mentality. I'm like, this is wrestling mentality, and that's why skill-wise they dominate the UFC, but I think mentally that's also why they dominate the UFC because they're just, you got to kill me. So a lot of just character things I learned in my first couple of years with wrestling, just being determined, being stubborn, being a perfectionist. Some of our rules was like, practice starts at 3. If someone is still tying their shoes and everyone's not warming up at 3:01, there's hell to pay. Everybody's doing 100 burpees. So we were just taught to be like militant.
Yeah.
So like that was ingrained in me when I was young, and so it's followed me for the rest of my life.
Andrew has talked a lot of trash about you before he came in today.
He
was
really
like,
did.
Man, he's like, I can't wait for that guy to come in. I'm gonna smoke that motherfucker. So just maybe after the podcast, like you guys might want to square off. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I've never seen him that hostile before, but
Yeah,
he was
absolutely
right.
No,
Nsima, right?
It's really surprising. I don't know why.
I
would just
usually don't get aggressive, but I'm pretty passionate about Street Fighter. So after this, we can totally get down and play Street Fighter. That's what I was talking about. I don't know what they're mentioning.
Tyler, when did you realize that, like, I guess your strength was a strength? Like, I don't know when you started strength training, but like when rolling with you, not only do you have amazing technique, by the way, but you are ridiculously strong. So when did you realize that that's something that you had that was an advantage, or an advantage to your game?
I always thought that's what I need to develop. When I first really started diving into wrestling, you're like, okay, I'm starting from behind everybody else. I got to figure out the technique portion, And since I don't have my lower body, I gotta, make up for it in my upper body.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no such thing as being too strong, So that's when I first started getting into lifting, and then I developed a passion for it over the years. And I always kind of got praised for my my upper body strength. So I guess I just kind of, it was always something I fell in love with. First thing I ever did, actually, way before wrestling or anything, when I was in elementary school, I got my elementary school push-up record, and that was the first time that I got like some praise for it. So I guess that's what made me kind of fall in love with fitness. It was, I asked the teacher one day, like, hey, what's the push-up record, since you make us do push-ups every day? And they said it's like 30. I'm like, oh, I'll do that. So I did like 35 or 40, and then some kid heard that I did that, and he did 50. So then that pissed me off. So
Game on.
Yeah. So then it was, it's war. So then I did like 70, then he did like 90. And it ended with, he did like 90 to 100. It pissed me off. I did 110. This is
a lot for kids.
This is 5th grade. So there was some other little kid as weird as me. So he did like 90. I did 110. And when I did the 110th rep, I thought, like, I'm putting the nail in this. Like, I don't want him to come back. So I went to 120. On the 120th rep, I just fell over out of exhaustion. I was sore for like 2 weeks. So I was like, I wasn't following a good nutrition plan or anything then.
Oh my God.
But I found him the next day. Like, I did 120. What are you going to do? He's like, I'm done. I'm like, thank you. So I guess that's kind of what made me fall in love with fitness at first, because it was the first thing I got praised for.
I don't think people understand how important that is. Just to receive a pat on the back.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who you are. You get a pat on the back for something. It makes a big difference in your life. And you can, having employees and having people that I work with on a daily basis, you can sometimes see, and owning a gym and coaching so many different people over the years, I can tell sometimes when someone has never gotten a pat on the back. And those are the people that when I give them a little pat on the back and I say, hey, that was great. Like, wow, you put in a lot of effort, and like, that was an awesome lift. Like, great job. You see them just all of a sudden, they're standing a little more upright, they're a little more full, and they're more confident. And they go up to that bar, and instead of like being like, oh, shucks, I don't know what's going to happen, with their kind of eyes down and they barely grab the bar and they set up for a squat, instead they're fired up, and you can see it, and they grab the bar with a good intention, and they go over there and they manhandle the weight and give it everything they got. And so that pat on the back is such a huge deal, whether you hit a base hit in baseball, or you caught the ball, or you scored a touchdown, or and a lot of kids unfortunately never experience it. And I think maybe because people aren't trying enough different things. They're not exposed to enough different things. So it's great for you that you got exposed to that, and then you started the push-ups back and forth with the other kid. When I was in school, I used to race a kid in I think it was like in 4th or 5th grade, and we would race all the time. Then other kids got involved, and we had that battle going on, and then we did a lot of arm wrestling, and it was always like a big showdown. Me and this other kid, we were the fastest kids in school, and we were the strongest, and we'd like arm wrestle, and it just always turned into like chaos. Like, we would start cheating, and like it would just turn into like wrestling. We'd always try to kill each other. But I think that pat on the back from a young age is something that I really think that parents should encourage their children to try to do as much different stuff as they can. And by encourage, I mean force.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you have to grab a hold of your kid and say, hey, we're going to karate. Why? I don't want to do karate. Doesn't matter. We're going. And you put them in it and you have them try it. Did your parents kind of force you to do a little bit of stuff to expose you to some different things?
No, but that is kind of what led me to jiu-jitsu, because I was doing wrestling, and then my little brother was doing karate, and after a year or two, he hated it, and they said, no, you're getting your black belt. After you get your black belt, you can never do it again, or you can keep doing it. They forced him to do it. And then that's when I got the idea of like, hey, I'm looking for something to do in the off season of wrestling that complements my wrestling. So I went in and I asked the head guy. There was a lot of different martial arts at this particular place, and he's like, hey, what martial art is like wrestling that'll complement my wrestling? And he gave me like 3 different free classes to try. One of them was jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, oh, this is like wrestling, but I can do the illegal stuff, So I'm like, I love it. So, and then that's when I fell in love with it. And then when I wasn't wrestling, I was doing jiu-jitsu. And then after my wrestling career ended, I just was like, okay, I'm doing jiu-jitsu. So
before, I didn't even know that you had your white blue and purple belt at another school.
Yeah.
So like, why'd you end up switching to Cassio's? What brought you over to Cassio school?
Mainly just because of how deep the waters are over there. You know, that we have every belt, every body type. You know, every single round is with somebody different. And I really wanted that at my old school that I was at, Infinite. It was a great place and a great instructor and everything. But I felt like the big fish there. It was me and a handful of other purple belts, and we were the highest belts there. There was no brown or black belts.
Yeah.
So it was a smaller school than Cassio's at that time. And there was me. I was 130 pounds at the time. There was another kid who was a purple belt. He was
Shit,
100.
you were 130 pounds?
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
What are you
So-
weighing right now?
Right now I'm 150, but that was
Damn.
before bodybuilding.
Yeah.
So. That was before
Jesus.
powerlifting and bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But so anyways, there was another kid who was a purple belt, 130 pounds. So he was my main partner. But after 5-6 years, we're sick of rolling with each other. Everybody else was, say, 160 and above, which I don't mind. You know, we roll together, and I'll roll with somebody bigger than me. But that's a different game plan. You know, I don't grapple a big guy and a small guy the same way. And I got sick of always working my big guy, my absolute division game plan.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go to a school where I could work both all the time. And so eventually I'm like, okay, I need to go to Cassio's because they have the body types, and they have people that they're smaller than me and way better than me. They're going to beat me with skill, not just with size and strength. And that's, you know, so Cassio's is, you know, the best school for that, I thought. So that's why I've been there ever since.
You seem to have really strong, like, just a mindset. Like, like your mental health seems really good. Has it always been that way?
I mean, I've gone up and down. You know, I think there's always been, you know, bouts of discouragement with anybody in a wheelchair because there is. We probably do fail twice as much as anybody else when we're trying to figure these things out. So there's always been ups and downs. I've sat in my car, especially when I was a blue belt. It's the stereotypical thing when you're a blue belt that most people don't survive blue belt. That's the frustration belt, right? That's what, if you survive blue belt, you might make it to black belt maybe, you know, but a lot of people quit at blue belt because that's the frustration belt. And I've sat in my car and cried after jiu-jitsu before I went home because I'm like, can I do this? Am I wasting my time? Am I never going to get beyond blue belt skill-wise? Am I ever going to be able to hang with a purple belt? You know, am I completely wasting my time? And I've sat in my car and cried and just thought, like, okay, I don't know, but I'm gonna find out.
Can we all just cry together for a little bit? I think that would be good for us.
I'll have to keep my eyes open for a while, get some tears going, but I can.
But yeah, so
I've cried over powerlifting before, and I think that just shows that you fucking care.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody has to cry over their sport or whatever, but like I've just been frustrated with myself, and it was like internal. It wasn't like anybody was preventing me from getting it, or it wasn't like, it was just, dude, like you're not really working hard. Like you should be working harder. You know, because you shouldn't have missed that lift. You know, you should be more prepared for this meet that's coming up. Like, what are you doing? Like, you need to get out of your own way. I've had many discussions with myself and lots of frustration. Been mad, been sad, been depressed about it, all kinds of different things. And then you kind of shift over and you're like, all right, well, you know, the next time we do those drills in practice, I'm going to do them better. The next time I go and lift those weights, I'm going to do them better. I would think about when I got done with a workout on, say, like a Tuesday is when I would do like squats and deadlifts and those types of things. And then again on Saturday. So if it was Tuesday, you know, I'd be pissed. But Wednesday morning, I'd wake up and I'd be like, you know what? On Saturday, you better fucking bring it. And I would think about it all the way until I got to the gym. And sure enough, when I came in, I was lifting way better because I thought about it so much beforehand. And I think a lot of times people are thinking like they're going to have like a pre-workout drink. It's like, you know, the ultimate pre-workout is to set your mind to something the right way and tune into that channel and be like, next time we work on those arm bars, I'm going to take that shit seriously, and I'm going to rip Nsima's arm off, and I'm going to take it home with me.
Yep.
It's easier said than done, but
It's happened.
that's a big arm to rip. But
Does it piss you off that he shows up late all the time? Like he never does it. Fucking guy never does the warm up. You know, right?
Well, that's the stereotypical purple belt thing. That's the purple belt thing, is you skip warm ups. That's how you know you're a real purple belt.
Well, just so you know, Andrew and I hate him probably more than anybody else in the world. And we can't stand him either. So if you hate him, like you're not alone.
Oh yeah.
You've come to the right place. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I've always had something though that like
Oh, poor Nsima. He's just realizing.
I think something that
Oh, fuck.
Everything's starting to make sense to him right now. It's all replaying in his head. He's like, oh my God.
But yeah, I mean that's something that's always kind of pushed me through those times of discouragement. Though is just I think I had enough motivational speeches when I was in wrestling, when I was really impressionable. Like those, I really took them seriously. Whenever Coach sat us down and did a speech to fire us up, like I believed every word he said. I never thought like, oh, that doesn't apply to me because I'm handicapped. He's talking to everyone else in the room, but not me. I took it like he's talking to me more than anybody else in the room. So I've always had this fire of like, I want to be at an elite level of something, be it wrestling, jiu-jitsu, powerlifting, bodybuilding. Like I've always had an urge for, being great at anything I do. So that didn't allow me to quit, no matter how many times I cried in my car.
Yeah.
Like I can't live with myself if I quit,
When you were younger and you went through the surgeries and stuff, were you like a baby or?
Oh yeah, I was a baby, so I don't
Okay.
remember any of them. Any surgery I've had now that I can tell you all about, it was because of me being stupid. It was because of me, fighting and stuff. But, yeah.
Have you ever had to go through any sort of therapy, like, or have you ever gone into like a group setting where you communicate with other handicapped people or something like that to kind of assist you and help you with your
Not
condition?
really. I've never, me personally, I've never had that issue. I've always kind of figured it out. And, I got into lifting ever since that kid, pissed me off in the push-up contest, So
Yeah.
I always kind of started developing my strength. So I figured things out, I think, a lot quicker than most handicapped people would because of I got into fitness early.
Yeah.
But I've been asked to come into different settings like
Yeah.
that and talk to them.
Right. And you mentioned you have a brother,
Yeah, I have 2 brothers, 3 sisters. So
and I
yeah.
bet you that probably helped. Seeing them like do stuff and just having like people to be competitive against that
Yeah.
are like in your own household, and you're probably thinking like, I can fucking do that. I can figure that out, right?
That was
kind of
another thing that like made an impact on me and got me into it was my older brother. He's, what is he? I think he's 10-ish years older than me,
Oh,
something
wow.
like that. But I would always be, I was a kid and I'd be watching cartoons and he'd be off in this other room in our house working out. I'm like, that looks cool. What's that? And
Yeah.
so eventually I went in there and grabbed the 5-pound weights and started doing my bicep curls, worked up to 3 sets of 50 and, and then I just started chasing it because like I wanted to be like him because it looked cool, So I guess that was really one of the starts of my fitness journey too, was just like, oh, like what's he doing?
Does he lift still?
Not really. He wasn't serious about it,
Yeah.
but just the fact that he did it.
Right.
Just the fact that he religiously did it a couple times a week, and every time, like, oh, I want to do that with him. And then, then I took it super seriously when I did it. So.
Oh yeah, you want to do what the big bros doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that kind of made an impression on me when I was young too.
So you've been lifting obviously for a long time, but like when did you get serious about like bodybuilding? Because I didn't know you've been competing for a while.
Well, bodybuilding, I've been on and off with that because my first show was in 2015.
Okay.
Then I didn't compete after that. I did bodybuilding training just because I liked it. But then my next show wasn't until 2018. And then that's when I went to nationals and won my pro card. And then right after that, I thought, okay, now I'm at the pro level. Now I'm going in there with the big boys. So I better like get more just time on stage, get more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then at that time, I was getting ready to do a guest posing. I was doing the guest posing just to get more comfortable on stage. And then that's when the Olympia allowed us to. No, that's the Arnold. That's probably not a great video to pull up because like I looked like crap at that one.
That's a bodybuilder thing to say.
Yeah, pull up another one, but pull up the Olympia one, even though I was small then. But anyways, that's when the Olympia allowed the first ever wheelchair division.
Yeah.
Was not this last Olympia, but the Olympia before that. They allowed the Olympia the Olympia allowed the wheelchair division, and then the promoter contacted me and said, "Hey, you want to do it?" And I thought, "Yeah, this show here." And I thought, "Oh crap, my first pro show ever is going to be the Olympia."
That's crazy.
Shit, dude, biceps looking awesome.
But yeah, and this was last year's Olympia. I was a lot happier with how I looked this year. I was a good 10
So
pounds.
you're mentioning that there's not a huge blueprint in terms of jiu-jitsu. Was there a little bit of blueprint for you in bodybuilding? Was there somebody that you looked up to that
Oh yeah.
was also in a wheelchair?
Oh yeah, all the pros. I mean, all the guys I was competing with in this show.
Yeah.
I mean, I was by far the smallest, So I look up to all the other pros that have been doing this forever. I mean, Harold Kelly, he's the king. He's won the Arnold 4, 5, 6 times. I don't remember. And
Damn,
then
dude, you look great.
And then he's won the last 2 Olympias, and he's crazy. And then Yeah, I mean, I look up to all the other pros that have been doing this for a while. So
they had all these big shows like the Arnold for multiple years, but why wasn't there an Olympia?
yeah, no, Olympia, they just sanctioned us or whatever the right thing to say would be.
Man, the
last
chair.
year.
The chair's killing your taper, bro. It like didn't go down. Doesn't go down quite low enough to see the.
Yeah, I got to get a different back on my chair to get better, get a better taper.
Oh shit!
But so anyways, there's only been 2 wheelchair Olympias now.
Wow.
But it's cool. We go on like right after the men's physique. So or no, it's classic physique.
Yeah.
You know, so it's been cool that we're up there on the same stage with everybody else.
Have you always been pretty comfortable with being like out in front of that many people? I mean, the Olympia, the Arnold, some of these
not when I
jiu-jitsu
was younger.
tournaments are
Not when
pretty
I was
big?
younger, no.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's totally different with fighting. I mean, you're only focused on this guy that's attacking you.
You don't know what the hell's going on.
After the first
otherwise.
10 seconds, I mean, this guy just hit me in the head, and now this is all I care about is this guy's attacking me. You forget anyone else is in the room. So I got over that real quick. And then with bodybuilding, I was scared out of my mind for my very first show when I was an amateur. You know, I was just behind the curtain. I'm like, why did I sign up to do this? I can't believe I'm doing this, you know? But after the first, 30 seconds, you kind of relax. And now I've done it a handful of times. Now I love it. Now like that, it's a good thrill. It's a positive thrill. But yeah, it took some time.
Tell me about handicapable. I like that. I like that saying that you have. You consider yourself handicapable rather than handicapped.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
does that mean to you?
Just not assuming anything. Not assuming that you know what your limit is because, well, nobody else has done it, so I guess it's not possible. It's like that's the 4-minute mile thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Be the first person to run the 4-minute mile, So I want to see what I can do that in, if anything. And if I don't, I don't. But I'd rather fail a million times and, okay, I can look back and say I tried. But I want to see what I can accomplish. If I can be the first person to really go deep in with jiu-jitsu or anything else. With bodybuilding, I can only match these guys because that blueprint's already been set. These guys look incredible, so I got to catch up to them. But in the worlds that, there hasn't really been a blueprint, can I be that,
Bodybuilding, powerlifting, jiu-jitsu, wrestling. What's been the hardest one for you to figure out?
That'd be jiu-jitsu. Yeah, jiu-jitsu is the hardest because it's just so complicated. It's so complicated. It's not just as straightforward. Just do the training and you'll get the result. With jiu-jitsu, it's complicated, and you can't just, your game has to constantly change, and your strategy has to change based on your opponent. I'm not going to grapple Nsima the same way I grapple a small guy. Totally different, so you need to know how to adapt your game based on your opponent. If you have 5 matches in a day, you're not going to just follow the same script for all 5 matches. So, it's different versus, with powerlifting, like learn how to bench correctly, and then you follow that script, right? So it's different, so.
Yeah, there's a lot more variables in something like jiu-jitsu. Like with powerlifting, it's like, just focus in on being strong and get around some other strong people and find different ways to challenge yourself. And if you get stuck, try something new, try something different. And, you're just working on being strong. And in bodybuilding, it's like you're working on just being in good condition. And it really comes down to your nutrition. Your diet is pretty much the main thing. How you train, as long as you're training hard, probably doesn't matter a ton, right? And maybe at that high level, maybe it starts to matter a little bit more. But jiu-jitsu or any sort of grappling, wrestling, MMA type stuff, you need to be in shape and you need to be strong. On top of that, you need to be smart with the different moves and the different approach and different strategy that you apply to each person. It's going to change immensely from one person to the other.
Yeah, there's so much to learn. I mean, the way I think about it too, like the average black belt, the day he or she gets their black belt, usually means they're awesome at like 2 moves. So, you know what I mean? Like they're really incredibly good at 2 moves. Congratulations, you've mastered 2 moves. Now, they say when you get your black belt, start all over. Become the master of some other move. So that shows you how deep it goes. And if you're ever bored in jiu-jitsu, you don't realize how much you don't know. So you can learn it forever. I like what Jeff Glover says, that he'll say that every week I will try to emulate somebody different just to challenge myself. I'm not going to grapple like me. I'm going to grapple like Hoffa Mendes. I'm going to grapple like, and just see if I can do their
That's
weird
pretty,
style.
I like that. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then just to challenge himself because he's reached a really high level, but he knows like, okay, I've mastered 10% of jiu-jitsu, and then this other guy, he's mastered a totally different style of jiu-jitsu than me, so I'm gonna try to do his style just because it's gonna be foreign to me, and that'll up my game at least to some extent. Yeah, so jiu-jitsu, it's so deep and there's so many variables. It's crazy.
There's a lot of different things that people do that I encounter on a daily basis, but when it comes to jiu-jitsu, it almost seems like jiu-jitsu has some sort of weird affiliate program going on where people are always trying to sell you on it. People are telling you because they're so excited about it. Do you think jiu-jitsu has some sort of like, I don't know, like spiritual transformation, or like what do you think it is? What do you think is so special about jiu-jitsu that gets everybody so pumped up about it?
I think that's anything though. I mean, there's that the hashtag jiu-jitsu saved my life, whatever.
Yeah.
You could say that about literally any sport.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding, powerlifting. I mean, it's whatever, caused you to turn your life around and not be a bum. It's whatever caused you to, it lights your soul on fire. And my first thing was wrestling. That's what got me to like, I'm going to become as strong as I possibly can. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to try to become an alpha, And then I fell in love with bodybuilding, powerlifting, and jiu-jitsu later on. But I've taken that same spirit into all of it. But yeah, so I mean, whatever you fall in love with is what's gonna, save your life and require you to be the best version of yourself every day because you're trying to master this thing. So it could be something different for everybody.
Yeah. So you're balancing all these three sports. For bodybuilding, you said you did your first show in 2015. Have you been handling like your preps? Have you been having somebody prep you, or has it been you doing this? Because when you prep, you also come in and do jujitsu.
Yeah, so on and off. My very first show, I had Jeremy Bundia work with me. He's 4-time men's physique champ. He's an old high school buddy of mine. So he helped me with my first prep. And then I had Chrissy, I don't know how to say her last name. Sorry, Chrissy. But she's she's one of my old teachers when I was in college. And she's brilliant too. So she helped me with some of my second prep. And then after that, just from my knowledge from them and my own knowledge from being a personal trainer, I've done all my preps ever since.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of like personal training and fitness, did you always know that that's what you wanted to head in and do? Did you have any other things that you wanted to do, or was that it?
That was the first thing that, like, when I was early 20s, I was trying to figure out what do I do with my life. That was the first one that, like, that lights my soul on fire again, I don't want to have a job that bores me. I don't want to sit behind a desk and, do the office job thing. Like, that's always been important to me, is have a job that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I admire people who are that workhorse mentality that can work 50 hours a week at a job they hate because they're just providing for their family. Like, I admire those people, but that's not my personality. I need to enjoy what I do for 40, 50 hours a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
And then, I integrate with my preps. I'll integrate jiu-jitsu, and I try to balance the best I can.
Yeah.
When it comes to the cardio portion, I try to make it as fun as I can, and jiu-jitsu, that's fun to me, So I'd rather just roll with somebody and, okay, let's not go balls to the walls, but if we just roll and roll and roll for a half hour, I mean, that's a ton of cardio, So I try to just make my cardio different things that are, it's burning calories, but it's also mentally engaging,
Yeah.
So that's where, I don't do as much jiu-jitsu when I'm getting ready for a show, but I still try to do enough that I remember what I'm doing and I'm using it for a purpose, So.
Have you communicated with other people that are in wheelchair about what lifting has done for you and what nutrition has done for you?
Yeah, I mean, anytime I'm asked to come speak at different things, I mean, I'll tell them whatever about my whole life, and how just these different things have caused me to, bring the best out in myself, So yeah, I'm always happy to talk to any of them about that, and I'll point out to them like, hey, if you get better at this, then this will get easier, especially with handicapped people. Like, if you lose weight and you get stronger, getting into your chair is so much easier. Getting into the shower, whatever. Like, you better be really good at dips. You know what I mean? Just lifting your body. So that's what I encourage with any handicapped person is like, you better make your body weight nothing to you, because this is all you're moving with, right? So make your body weight nothing to you. Get really strong in your upper body. Get down to as low of a body fat as you can comfortably can, and then that'll keep your independence. That'll keep your mobility and your independence. But, as we all know, like, it's hard for some people to get into that mindset.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But it sounds like life altering, because if you don't want to move, we know what's going to happen to you. Like, if you're like, it's too much. I mean, I just think about my own lazy ass, and I'm like, the remote's on the other side of the room, and right. And it's a lot easier now that I'm not 330 pounds to be like, I should just fucking go get the remote, or I should just go up the stairs again, or I should just do this or that. And then also it's like built in, over years of just trying to be less lazy, trying to be less fat, I guess you'd say. But it must be difficult for people that are in a wheelchair. Like if you have any extra obstacle on top of it, it's got to make it harder,
That's where with me, the thing that's always motivated me is it was competition based. I was always trying to beat somebody. Ever since I was a kid, beating that kid in the push-up contest. It's always been, I'm trying to beat somebody else, and he or she is doing that, so I'm going to do it. Same thing that I'm sure wakes you guys up every day when, when you're in your prime, you're like, I'm going to beat that guy. He beat me last time, and I never forgot it. And I remember, I know the guys who have beaten me by like one placing in bodybuilding or whatever. I'm like, I'm going to beat him next time, So like that wakes you up every day. Yeah. But someone who doesn't have that, I mean, I can understand it's hard for you to get up with that same passion,
Yeah. When you were setting these push-up records and stuff as a kid, was anybody like in your ear talking about like diet and nutrition and stuff? No. So like, where did that or did you even pay attention to your diet, or you were just like so active it didn't even matter?
I'd say when I really started learning about diet wasn't until I did powerlifting, and I had some coaches for powerlifting. I was trying to make the Paralympic team, and that's when they educated me a bit more, and then I really started learning about it when I did bodybuilding, of course, because you're not going anywhere in bodybuilding without a lot of nutrition. But yeah, when I was younger, I just knew the general information. I just knew whatever the media would tell you, which then you find out 20 years later was not true. When I was, real young and I first started lifting for wrestling, it's, oh yeah, drink soy milk. Soy milk's great for you.
Oh.
Now I'm like, great. Now I hear a bunch of crap about soy, So, So yeah, I really learned about nutrition when I did powerlifting and bodybuilding, so a bit later in life. And then I dove into personal training as my career, so of course then I learned about it for that too.
Yeah.
When when Mark went to school, it was a little bit of a different time than I think how old are you?
30.
30. Yeah, so we're about the same age. So it's a little bit different than when Mark was going to school. But he talks about how he was in like special classes and stuff. And whenever somebody would like bully one of the kids in his class or something, he felt like he had to be there to like stop them from bullying him and stuff. I don't know if like you had been like friends with other people in wheelchairs and stuff, but did you feel like, you had to be the man to kind of protect, kind of everybody else in a wheelchair or something like that? Or was there any instances when that happened?
Not really, nothing like that.
Yeah.
Nothing with bullying situations. Just what I see mostly with the other disabled athletes or just disabled people in general, some clients that I'll work with on and off or whatever, is that built-in victim mentality that they have.
Okay.
And they assume that I can't do anything because I was in a car accident and now I'm screwed, life's over, So that's what I see as this victim mentality. And I can't get up and go into the kitchen and cook and do all this stuff. And my first reaction is, have you tried? And that they haven't even tried. They just assume they can't do it.
They're kind of protecting them from themselves almost, right?
They're not, exactly like that. Okay. Not willing to try. That's the saddest thing I see with people in the disabled community.
Yeah. I'm thinking back, like when you were talking about your wrestling coach, I'm thinking back to like my soccer coach when I was a kid. His name's Marcos Mercado, and he had a massive influence in terms of how I look at fitness, in terms of like how I look at work ethic. He kind of helped really mold me in that sense. And I think that just goes to show, and even for yourself, how powerful a coach can be on a young kid's life, especially in a sport. Because, like, do you think if you never had that, do you think you'd be a different person? Do you think you'd have the same mentality?
I'd be a victim. I'll tell you that right now. I'd be a victim. I'd be like everybody else who I was just talking about.
Yeah.
But I had a coach who challenged me, and he treated me just like everybody else. He beat the shit out of me. I mean, he'd come up, like, I'd get hit just like everybody else. I remember sitting in the corner of the Rockland High wrestling room and crying because that really hurt my head. You hit me. Like, ow. Yeah. And, I'm thinking about quitting. And then I came back the next day and I hit him back, But, like, yeah, they hit me just as hard, and they would yell at me if I performed bad. If you lose a match, maybe I won a match, but I didn't dominate like I should have. Like, that kid was easy. You should have pinned him, but you didn't. They'd chew my ass just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So yeah, having that person to instill all that in me, I mean, that changed my life, really, those 4 years of high school.
Yeah. It's really crazy. Like, every parent, like, I mean, if you can, you should have your kids do some kind of sport, whatever it is. You should have them do something where it pushes them physically and it pushes them mentally.
Yeah. I've talked about that with some of my friends, that like I almost feel like it should be a high school requirement, just that, and I love, you know, all sports are great and everything, but something about those individual sports where if you fail, it's because you failed.
Yeah.
You know, there's something about that that teaches you something for life. You know, we all know the people that are 40, 50 years old and their whole life, every time they failed, it's someone else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to, you know, cut it in wrestling or jiu-jitsu or any, you know, one-on-one sport if that's your mentality. You have to learn that you failed because you failed, and you need to own that. And some people, you know, that's why they quit the sport.
Yeah.
Because they can't handle that. And then some people, you know, evolve because of that. You know,
How do you decipher feeling a certain way because you're born with what you were born with versus like being a victim?
mm-hmm.
Like, is there a difference between the two sometimes? Because a lot of what you're saying, I just see it in everybody. Like I see it, you know, the people are lazy motherfuckers all the time, you know, whether they have a disability or not. So it's like, I guess, yeah. How would you kind of decipher the two, or is there even a reason to?
I mean, I guess everybody has a choice. You know, everybody has a choice to go one route or the other, and then it just, I don't. I think your beginnings have a lot to do with it. What were you taught? And like, the earlier you're taught something, you know, the better off you are. And just luckily, when I was 14, 15, 16, I had a coach teach me how to not be a victim. He didn't allow me to be a victim. You know, so it's tough that, you know, for some other people that they never had that influence in their lives. But at the same time, at some point, you have to take responsibility for your life. You can't blame your terrible parents or your terrible upbringing or whatever your whole life. At some point, you need to be an adult and like, okay, do I need therapy? Go to therapy. Do I need a trainer? Go get a trainer. Go get whatever you need because you've identified what your weaknesses are. You know, but at some point, you need to take responsibility for your own success. You know, so it's your choice what direction you go.
Yeah, you have to invest in yourself, and you have to, you know, you have to try to make yourself better the best way that you can, kind of regardless.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of your situation.
Yeah, but it's so easy to say that no, my whole life of failures is my parents' fault or whatever, my upbringing, blah blah blah. They never get out of that mentality, and that's tough. It's tough to help people out of that, but people just get caught in this cycle, you know, mentally, and they, you know, some people never break out, unfortunately.
It must be pretty hard to have like friends then, right? Because you look at people like, oh, I stubbed my toe, my day's over. You're just like, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've gotten better over the years. I've gotten better over the years of like, okay.
Be more accepting, maybe.
Well, and like, how do I tactfully call somebody out, you know, in a loving way, but, you know. And then like I'll do that with I'll also coach wrestling on my free time back at my old high school, and I try to like learn the person's personality. One person loves being yelled at, you know, and then another person they're a bit more gentle. I'm like, okay, this person, how do I tactfully call them out? This other person, I could say, you're being a wimp. You need to get up and, you know, go do your job. You know.
Yeah.
So you kind of learn how do you go about talking to different people but still get the message across of like, you need to take responsibility for your actions. No, it's not okay to play the victim, you know?
Yeah. I can imagine like being a client of yours, like if they were going to come in acting like, or like, I guess feeling sorry for themselves, I feel like, how do you handle people like that?
Well, that's kind of the ongoing joke between me and Lisa.
Yeah.
Lisa is one of my clients, and she's also one of my teammates at Jiu-Jitsu, and she's in a wheelchair also, but for different reasons. But that's our ongoing joke is like, why did I pick the trainer in the wheelchair? Like, I can't get any sympathy. I'm like, no, like for someone else in a wheelchair, like, oh, I can't. I'm like, why can't you? I did it. Yeah, so I don't have any sympathy. Like, I try not to come off like an ass, you know, but I don't have any sympathy, especially for other people in wheelchairs. Like, if you're paralyzed from the neck down, okay, that's different.
Yeah.
But most people, it's like, you're fine. You just need to work harder and, you know. So, yeah, whenever here and there a client will text me and like, hey, you know, I stubbed my toe, I twisted my ankle, I can't come in to train today. I'm like, we can do an all upper body workout. That's my specialty. Yeah. You know, that's what I'll text them. I'm like, you know, I specialize in all upper body workouts.
Right.
Like, more than anything, that's my thing. I'll kick your butt with an upper body workout. Get in here. I'll sit you down on the bench because you twisted your ankle. You'll never have to get off the bench the whole workout, and I guarantee you'll burn just as many calories. That's my thing, you know? So I'll try to not come off like an ass, but tactfully like call them out and not let them get away with, you know, playing victim. It doesn't matter that you twisted your ankle. Okay, that's 10% of your body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I'll encounter just in conversation. They'll say, I could never do that. And it's just like, I catch myself sometimes saying stuff like that. And then I try to fix it. I try to not say that anymore. I try to, not speak in such an absolute way, because it really doesn't make any sense when someone's talking about like a fitness plan or nutrition, or maybe they want to learn a certain skill. I could never do that. Maybe you're thinking about Cassio, and you're like, oh, I can never be that good at jiu. It's like, what's the point? Why would you why would you say that about yourself? Or something I hear very often in terms of like nutrition is somebody's like, I might be able to do some of that, but I could never give up alcohol. And it's like, well, why would you? Why, there's no reason to say that. You could do it, and you could certainly do better than, like, do you need alcohol every night? Like, let's see if we can make some sense of this. Maybe they're addicted to it or something, but I think you can make some. I can never go without coffee. And it's like, well, you could.
Yeah, that goes
That's
deep.
an option.
That goes deep. Yeah, like those type of problems go deep. Whenever you hear somebody saying something and you can tell they're locked onto that way of thinking, that like it's part of their identity. It's like that's tough, and it sucks that your identity is some type of a victim. That you can't go without such and such. Like, don't say you can't. Just, it's really hard. When I get ready for my shows, by the end of it, I do start getting addicted to caffeine. Because I feel like crap, and I'm like, where's the pre-workout? I got one more week, and I feel horrible. Give me pre-workout. So I start getting addicted to it. So like, I got to tell myself, nope, you don't need it. And challenge yourself to be mentally strong, and tell yourself that you are mentally strong. Don't tell yourself you can't do anything. Tell yourself, I can. It's just going to suck. But don't ever say you can't do anything, because then you're identifying as a victim. And
it's difficult for everybody.
Yeah, and absolutely. It's
not eating
difficult for
French
everybody.
fries is difficult for everybody. Not eating, a milkshake or ice cream or cookie dough.
Yeah, you got to get the right perspective on everything. What I'll tell people when it comes to, anytime I'm doing a show or whatever, I got to make weight for any of these sports. They're saying, isn't this hard to, have you sit here, I'm eating pizza in front of you? Isn't this hard for you? I'm like, no pizza I've ever had has tasted as good as the Olympia stage. It's like, that's my perspective. I keep reminding myself of is like, no, like that's so much more thrilling when I win a jiu-jitsu competition or whatever. Like, that's so much more tasty.
Yeah.
I've never had a pizza taste that good. And as soon as I get off the damn stage, I'll have pizza.
Uh-huh.
I can suck it up for 2 more weeks.
Yeah.
So like I can have balance in my life, but if I have too much of that pizza, I never get the Olympia stage. I never win that fight to win in jiu-jitsu or whatever. So yeah, you just got to get perspective on whatever your situation is, and don't ever say, I can't blank. I can't, live without this. Like, no, you can. It's just going to suck, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be uncomfortable.
And then
Everyone
eventually
should-
it'll suck less, right?
Yeah. Everyone should rewind that part of the podcast and listen to that several times over. I mean, that really makes a lot of sense, and you can apply it anywhere. Your ability to not go out on the weekends and waste a lot of time doing things that just aren't going towards your goals, and then you end up getting your black belt in jiu-jitsu faster, and you reach your goals, or you end up making the money that you want to make, or you end up in the relationship that you want to be, whatever it is, whatever thing you're working towards, whatever the thing is you're working towards. Because I think it's just hard. It's hard because that immediate pleasure of having that pizza, or that immediate pleasure of just slacking off, just being like, I'll just fucking do it tomorrow.
And with that, I mean, with the pizza, I've had it before. It tastes good, but I've had that experience before. I don't know what it feels like that when you had your record lifts.
Right.
When you put the weight down, you're like, I got the lift. I don't know what that feels like. I want to know what that feels like. That like I'm at an elite level in whatever sport. I want to know that taste. I know what the pizza taste is like. And it's not the most amazing thing in the world. So it's just keeping that perspective on it. That go get a taste you've never had before.
Are there any habits you have or things that you do that you think allow you to continue to push yourself so well? Or are there things that are just staples in just terms of your daily habits?
I think I could probably name like a lot of them, but one of the biggest ones that I'll talk to people about is you have to be intentional about your motivation. Don't wake up and just, I'm motivated today, so I'll go kick butt today. And you wake up the next day, I'm not motivated, so I'm just not motivated. It's a wasted day. Like, no, every day wake up and motivate yourself. Like, be intentional about seeking out the motivation, So just a couple weeks ago, I got up and I intended to eat breakfast and go to the gym. As I'm cooking my breakfast, I was watching West Side vs. the World. So by the time I was done with eating breakfast, I'm like, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm fired up after watching that. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
just like put on music, put on, a YouTube video, put on something that motivates you if you're not motivated that particular morning, and
Yeah.
find your motivation. Seek it out if you don't organically have it that particular morning,
Mhm.
and do that every single day for 20 years straight.
Yeah.
Now you're successful.
Yeah.
Don't be don't just let life happen to you though. Be intentional about seeking out your motivation and then doing whatever your checklist is. I like the Rock's thing. He'll talk about how rents due. Like
Yeah,
he has those
yeah.
shirts, rents due. I'm like, yeah, I like that. You
Uh-huh.
owe yourself. You owe yourself today. Go pay rent today. Go do it. You owe it.
Yeah, I like that a lot because, like, a lot of times, people or even myself, you want to be able to motivate yourself all the time.
Mhm.
But having something on the outside or watching some video or listening to something every day and having that be something that helps you or gives you that extra burst, it makes a lot of sense.
No, that's what I'll do all the time. I'll wake up, and as I'm making breakfast before going to work out, I'll watch or listen to something.
Mm.
And just the visual, or just even just hearing it, if I'm not even watching it, just hearing you guys interview, these great people, and they'll talk about how they got there, and that gets me fired up by the time I'm done cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
The inputs make such a big difference. Like the things you're listening to or the things you're watching on a daily basis, like it really, I can track, the times where I wasn't feeling good. What was I putting into my body, or what was I watching? What was I listening to? It wasn't ideal stuff, and then like changing that can make such a massive difference.
Yeah, and
And
just be surrounded by greatness. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're feeling unmotivated, then you can go through a checklist of things too, like, are you feeding yourself, healthy options, not just in terms of your food. Food's very obvious, like feed yourself healthy stuff, and it's going to be easier to feel good and to be fit and to want to move around. But like also like, feed yourself positive stuff, input, take in positive messages from podcast, books, whatever resources that you have available to you. And another thing something that's helped me with motivation is nostalgia. So find that old song that you really like, maybe just go like, maybe go with something unconventional that you haven't listened to in a really long time. Think about like an artist or somebody that you really, really like. And it doesn't really have to be like music that gets you crazy revved up, although it could be. But if it's something from like 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, it's going to bring back a lot of memories for you. And it's something that can kind of lift your spirits and get you fired up. And it could be any form of nostalgia, but music is a good one. And then just walking. I found that walking is just, really just going out and just, you don't even have to, it doesn't really matter how long you walk for, just go out and just, I found that like anytime I've been kind of just frustrated, if I go for a walk, it's gone. I worked out every detail in my head by the time I got back, and I'm over it. I'm like, usually it's just me being a bitch about something, me just being a whiny baby about something, and I just need to work on fixing something. But once you go for that walk, it's almost like therapy. And because you're moving, I think your brain stays really active, and you start to kind of work your way through it. And then you're like, all right, well, here's how I need to approach that. And boom, it's over with.
Yeah. Do you ever look at like old like I'll pull up like a Sacramento Kings like intro video when they announce the players? That will get me fired the heck up big time, dude. Like it's so weird, but that's
because they got the
totally
music cranking and
dude.
the announcers all into it and
It's
stuff.
amazing. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things to pull up every once in a while.
Yeah, I'll use that nostalgia thing all the time. With me, it's Thunderstruck, AC/DC.
Yeah.
'Cause that's what we'd come out to for wrestling. So those 4 years that changed my life with wrestling, we would come out at every wrestling duel to Thunderstruck because we were Rockland Thunder.
Yeah.
So like I associate that song with killing someone. You know what I mean? I associate like when that song comes on, that means we're gonna come out and we're gonna kill somebody, and we're gonna come out looking badass with the spotlight on the mat and everything. So like that's like always nostalgic for me. And then whenever I'm going real heavy on bench press, whenever I'm having a max out day on bench, I'll do my warm-ups and everything, and in between every set I will just pace back and forth in front of the bench, but in my mind I'm pacing back and forth in front of the mat. That's just something you do. You pace back and forth in front of the mat, waiting for the match in front of you to finish. And I just go into that like dark place, and then I go and try to max out, and it just something about that nostalgia really like pulls out that animal.
Yeah.
So
Do you have some things that you do mentally to prepare for some of your tournaments and for some of the jiu-jitsu stuff that you've done, the bodybuilding stuff? Well, maybe more so the jiu-jitsu. Do you kind of walk yourself through it mentally, like how you're gonna do, or you just kind of like go in there and do your thing?
When it comes to like in the gym, if I'm trying to like break a record in the gym, I get fired up. I get really excited and fired up. Any kind of competition though, I stay as calm as I possibly can because I'm prone to
Yeah, you don't want to waste a lot of energy, huh?
yeah, I'm really prone to adrenaline dumps. I had a big problem with that in powerlifting. Every time I would bench. I mean, my best bench in powerlifting competition was 330. My best bench in the gym, relaxed, just in my own world, is 390 something, 395. You know what I mean? So just it was because of the adrenaline, and it messes with me.
You nearly bench 400 pounds, and you said you weigh about 150.
150, yeah.
Wow.
But like in the gym with my own music, no one's staring.
I
at
wonder
you.
why you're so strong on the mat.
I told you.
But yeah, so like I always struggle with that though. Like when the lights are on and everything, I get caught up in that and I get nervous and it drains me. And I get out on the bench and then my first lift feels like 1,000 pounds, and I'm like, crap! Like I could do this for sets of 7 the other day, because I would get that adrenaline dump. Then in the gym with no pressure, I mean, I would kill it, because there's, so. I try to stay as calm as I possibly can before any kind of competition, bodybuilding or anything else, powerlifting, jiu-jitsu, anything.
Another thing that might help people motivation-wise is, we were talking about The Rock and watching some of the old footage of him. Whatever that thing is that you loved as a kid too, like again, nostalgia. Maybe it's an old video, maybe it's an old video of, I always like Bo Jackson and Mike Tyson and Michael Jordan. Like if I watch any of that stuff, I feel like I run through a brick wall. It doesn't have to be much. It doesn't have to be like some emotional, crazy thing that's edited with crazy music behind it. Just them doing their thing. I could still envision. I got to see Michael Jordan play. My dad took me to a New York Knicks, Chicago Bulls playoff game, and it's that famous play where Jordan goes on the baseline. I could play that in my head, and I know like where I was sitting and stuff. And yeah, that stuff gets me fired up. That was cool. Like that was watching like greatness and watching like one of the greatest athletes of all time, and that will get me fired up and excited. So when you're trying to reach for motivation, there's a bunch of different things you can do to try to stimulate that.
Yeah, and just be intentional about it. Seek it out. Don't just wait for those mornings that it organically pops into your head. Like seek it out every morning.
What's your food like?
Pretty traditional. I mean, I'm listening to a lot of your guys' podcasts, and now that's the diets are all over the place. So I'm still learning. But right now, I'm just more the traditional. Just the slow digesting carb, the veggie, the meat, the fish. Just pretty traditional.
Natural foods.
Yeah, just natural. I haven't done any of the extremes, but like I'm always learning, and I'm always really fascinated by the people you have on the show that are talking about one direction or the other, all the meat or all the veggies or somewhere in the middle. So yeah, it's really fascinating. So yeah, I'm more just kind of traditional though right now, just traditional bodybuilding diet.
What do you recommend to people? We have a lot of listeners on the show. We talk all the time about weight loss, but what would you recommend for somebody trying to put on some size? Because you said that you put on about 20 pounds, and you're pretty jacked. So, what would be a recommendation for someone to put on some size, put on some bulk?
I mean, it just something you can maintain no matter what your goal is, whether it's bulking up or getting leaner. Just something you can do for a long period of time. It's not an all-out sprint unless you're in a special situation, like you're 2 months out from a bodybuilding show, then you got to do what you got to do. But for the most part, find the type of diet and the type of lifestyle you can maintain long term. I tell all my clients, like, have a place for the candy or whatever. Have a place for your alcohol, whatever it is. If you have it too much, then no, you're never going to have abs. You're never going to, but have a place for the donut, and then have a place for the kale and the stuff that you're not actually excited about eating. Have structure, develop structure. And then just follow the science. Like, you gotta, gotta be in a calorie surplus to really put on muscle. So follow the rules, but also have structure to everything you do with the play foods and then the healthy foods.
Yeah.
So find what works for you and then what doesn't upset your stomach and stuff. Just try out the different methods that work for your body.
Has your diet evolved over time? Have you or has this been the premise of what you've been doing for the last few years?
I'd say, I've stuck with pretty much just the traditional type of diet, the traditional bodybuilder type of diet, but just getting more perfect with it over time. Every prep gets a little bit better. You're supplementing a little bit more. Maybe you were lazy about something, your water in the past, and now you're being OCD about get this much water in a day. And so I've just gotten better with every prep about just adding more to it.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
How about preps now? I think you said your next show is when?
The Arnold in March.
Okay. And when do you start prepping for that?
About 3 months out, give or take.
Shoot.
Yeah, somewhere around that range. Yeah.
And it's going to be Arnold and then Olympia after that.
And then I'm not sure. I mean, definitely those are the two that I want to do. But then there's a Dallas show in between that. There's a Toronto show in between that. It's really limited for wheelchair bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And then we're in the the development stages of our sport. So we're still figuring out like what are our qualifications for the Olympia. So that's really what we base everything around is what do I got to do to get the Olympia stage.
Yeah.
So when we have participation issues, and that usually dictates what happens with our qualifications. Right now, though, the last I heard, if you take top 4 at any pro show, then you're in. So if I take top 4 at the Arnold, then I'll probably just bulk up all I can until the Olympia.
Yeah.
If I do poor at the Arnold, then maybe I'll do one more show and try to qualify there. And so it really just depends. But my whole thing is I want to do the Arnold because that's a really fun one, and then whatever I have to do to qualify for the Olympia because that's the prestigious one. Yeah.
How was that like meeting Arnold? Because I think you talked to me about that before.
Yeah, that was awesome. You know, it's surreal. He walks in and you hear his voice and you're like, oh, that's Arnold's voice. Like no one sounds like that's Arnold's voice, So it was surreal.
Yeah.
And it was cool. He seemed like he wasn't completely on autopilot with us. He came over, he shook all of our hands, he took a picture with us, and then he did a little Snapchat with all of us.
Yeah.
It seemed like he was present with us. It was brief, but he wasn't just autopilot. And I've met other celebrities of whatever type, and they were very just, hey, how you doing? Shake your hand and next person in line, Yeah. So I've been disappointed with a handful of celebrities I've met, but he wasn't one of them. He was cool. So.
Do your parents go to a lot of these events?
Yeah, everyone they can. Of course, none of them are ever, here in Sacramento.
Right.
But they've gone to the last 2 Olympias because that's the big one, and then they're planning on going to the Arnold this time. I told them, get ready because that's incredibly big.
Yeah.
When I saw you there last year, and I was looking for the jiu-jitsu area, and I never found it. I was looking for 2-3 days, and I never found the jiu-jitsu mats.
Yeah.
So you can get lost there so easy.
Yeah.
It's like 2 of the Olympia.
It is pretty crazy.
Yeah. So.
How does it feel being like the first to do a lot of stuff? Because I mean, we've been talking about the 4-minute mile and stuff, but like wheelchair Olympia, you were one of the first group to do it, one of the first people to do Fight to Win. You're probably going to be going into a lot of new territory. How what do you want to be able to do next? Is there anything next that you're like, I'm probably going to be the first guy to ever do that? There's
a lot of things I just felt really honored and blessed to be a part of. Like that very first wheelchair Olympia, there was 9 of us, so I'm part of the first 9 on stage ever.
Yeah. This
This last Olympia, a month ago. Well, how do I explain this? At the first Olympia, we weren't officially part of the Olympia. So I don't know how to explain it behind the scenes politically, but we were hosted at the Olympia. It wasn't the wheelchair Olympia. It was the IFBB Pro League Pro Wheelchair Championship at the Olympia. You're right. So this year that just happened, we were officially part of the Olympia just like every other class. So when we got our jackets, it has the Olympia symbol on it. Last year it didn't. None of our gear had the Olympia symbol on it. This year we're officially part of the club. So the promoter gave us our jackets and he said, hey, the biggest thing to me is the promoter. You guys have that patch on your back right there, that symbol on your back. You're the first wheelchair athletes in history to have that, to be able to wear that, So that was amazing. And then, Fight to Win. I found out that morning of Fight to Win that I was the first para-athlete to ever do Fight to Win. And I guess if I would have thought about it, I would have known that. But it didn't hit me till that morning. And I'm like, this is really impactful to me. That in a sport that I love, on a huge stage in the jiu-jitsu community, I'm the first one to do this. That was really special to me. So, so all these things have just made me feel really blessed and really, honored to be a part of. And then what I would like to do, with the different things with different sports, but with jiu-jitsu, I'd love to just create a whole system. I'd love to be like a John Danaher, someone who just creates a whole system that no one else even fully understands until you're in it, until you're already tapping. And wow, I didn't even know I was in a trap, So when I'm on Cassio's level, if I ever am, I want to just have this incredible system that I can teach to the world that no one else has discovered before and put together quite the way that I have. Then, with bodybuilding, I want to go as far as I can. I mean, I know, genetics play a part of that and everything. So there I might have a cap, but I want to do as good as I can there. If I can finish somewhere in the middle of the pack, then that's fine with me, So.
Yeah. You seem really determined and motivated. Is there kind of a footprint that you're trying to leave behind? Because you're mentioning that, there's not a blueprint and maybe maybe you're the blueprint for other people.
Yeah, I mean, I want to set the blueprint all I can in these different things, especially in jiu-jitsu, and then just in attitude, the best I can. Whoever I'm around, if I can, leave a positive impact on them, if I can inspire them, whatever I can do to leave as much of a blueprint as I can, because there's not that many, especially in the sport world. The only one I can think of really that was really successful was Anthony Robles. He was the only one to really kill it, and he won the NCAAs in wrestling with one leg. There's been others that have been successful, but not like world champion level. There's been Kyle Maynard. He's a, who he is? No. He's a purple belt under Andre Galvao. He has elbows and knees, essentially. He doesn't have hands. He doesn't have feet. He's just here. And he's been the first to do a million things.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's got a crazy story. But, so there's been people that I've admired over the years, but very few that have been extremely successful. But so I just want to be as successful as I can be and leave as much of a blueprint as I possibly can for those who come after me.
Yeah. I'll say this though, man. Like, I mean, even rolling, you've transformed a massive part of my game. Like every single time I roll there and you're watching me, you always give me new things that I do that I implement and works amazing. So that blueprint aspect of things you're talking about, I honestly don't think you're that far off because it's just crazy how well you understand the game, so.
And that's the coach side of me is whenever I'm watching you roll, I'm like, I feel like I'm playing a video game, and I'm like, look at this I got to work with, and I'll see you rolling. I'm like, if he did this, he would throw the guy out the window right now. So I always try to teach you something here and there, because like, dang, if he saw this opportunity, you'd be winning worlds all the time. Just because of your your physique that you have. I mean, this is a hell of a sword you're fighting with. And as we talked about, like, why wasn't Brock Lesnar undefeated? He should have been. Right? Why wasn't he? If he was more technical, look at the sword he was fighting with. I mean, then Cain Velasquez comes in. He doesn't have as sharp of a sword, but he was just better.
Yep.
So that when I see you, I'm like, damn, dude, you got a sharp sword. Now, the better your technique is, you'll be unstoppable one day. So, yeah.
I was really, really fortunate to hang out with Mark over the weekend with some amazing people. Mark called it the Meathead Millionaire Summit. It was incredible. Everybody around the room, they kind of spoke and they gave a little bit of background about themselves, and it seemed like there was some sort of bad thing that happened to them, and they used it as a springboard to do literally everything that they're doing now. Would you have anything any other way?
No. I mean, you need challenge to bring the best out of you. How else does it ever come out? No one ever really, I don't think people really bring the best out of themselves for no reason. Something happens to just about everybody that brings out that animal in you, or it defeats you. And that's what we see in the world. One person is defeated by a situation, another person has the same situation or a worse situation, and they become an animal because of it. So it's your choice. But I think that's something that happens in everybody's lives. The difficulties you go through build more muscle. Your challenges build more muscle, or they break you down, right? But it starts with that bar is over your chest, and is it going to build more muscle, or is it going to crush you? Yeah. So that's everybody's choice, and that's what determines the successful from the unsuccessful.
Kind of sounds to me like everything in your life might come full circle. Mentioning you had a mentor in wrestling that probably really helped steer your life in a really positive and strong direction. And it sounds to me like through personal training and through helping people at jiu-jitsu, that you're going to end up being that mentor for a lot of people. So I think that's really cool, and I think that would be something that would probably give you a lot of probably fill you up, make you feel really good.
Yeah, I've always loved coaching, and that's where I coach at Rockland High School with wrestling every chance I get, and that's also one of the things that made me realize I want to be a trainer, because I do like that one-on-one, just helping people. It does kind of come natural to me, and I do like when I'm sitting on the side of the mat at jiu-jitsu in between rounds, I'll watch people roll, and I'm like, oh, he doesn't realize that's wide open. I got to tell him, I got to show him this was wide open. It was staring you in the face the whole roll, and you didn't take it. I got to, like, the coach in me does come out. Like, I got to show you, because like I take that all the time. It works easy.
That's great.
Yeah. So,
where can people find you?
Instagram and Facebook. On Instagram, that's Tyler Brey _IFBB _PT. And then on Facebook, just my name.
You have any jiu-jitsu tournaments coming up?
I enter every one of them that I can. I'm not really big on IBJJF because of like the point system and everything. I like more the submission only tournaments because then I mean there's no such thing as a bad position. You know, you just it's a street fight. You just roll. So I try to enter all the submission only as I can, but most of those are exhibition fights or whatever you want to call them. So the other person has to accept, and nobody wants to fight me. So you know, I enter all of the submission pro tours and the fight to wins and all the other ones I can find, but it's rare that I get the call. But I'll keep entering them until you know I get the call, and then otherwise I'm just focusing on bodybuilding competitions.
Cool.
So.
A big shout out to our sponsors. We got Piedmontese Beef, Quest Nutrition, and Perfect Keto. Andrew, give them some hookups on how they can get a discount on some of that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. So wherever you're watching this or listening to this, everything's in the description. But head over to Piedmontese.com. That's PIEDMONTESE.com. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 25% off your order. And if your order is above $99, then you get free 2-day shipping. And then our boys at Perfect Keto, that's perfectketo.com/PowerProject. At checkout, enter promo code PowerProject for 15% off your entire order. You guys know we go nuts for the nootropics and especially the bars. But actually, my fiance, she texted me. She's like, "Can you get more of the nootropics? Because we killed our second tub." So, but it was really good because she had a bunch of stuff she needed to do online, and she got everything taken care of, cleaned the house. It was insane. Yeah.
Nice.
And then of course we go nuts over all the Quest bars. Head over to questnutrition.com, enter promo code MarksQuest for 20% off your order, and I highly recommend the taco flavored chips. I had those with my Monster Mash, and unfortunately that's the last time I'm gonna have them because Mark pulled away all of the extra little cheats that I'm having.
We got to get serious.
It's gonna get serious. Shred Again's a real thing, and I'm pretty fired up after listening to Tyler. This is, I mean,
Andrew is trying to get abs by Christmas.
Yeah. So
awesome.
That's what he's working on.
Awesome.
Yeah. So like yesterday, I was like, this is fine. I'm gonna cheat, and then Mark walks in, and he's like, "Chips, huh?" I'm like, I mean, so he said it's just gonna be a little bit more drastic than a normal person.
You can look at it like this. This is the bad thing that's happening to you to allow you to springboard and pivot from here.
Yeah.
The Quest bar, like this will be your story 10 years from now. Like, how'd you get abs? Be like, my buddy, he took away the Quest bars and it really upset me and I got frustrated. But then I just did it, man, and I got jacked and tan.
Yeah, but what he explained, he was like, we're doing something a little bit more dramatic, right? He's like, you could still have them, and you're gonna reach your goal, but let's make it impactful. Let's get you abs by Christmas. And I'm like, all right, I can get with that. I'm down with that. You know what I mean?
It's nice. It'll be a little Christmas gift to yourself.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm hoping to open up on Christmas Day. Yep.
People don't bring out the best in themselves for no reason. One of the best quotes I've heard in a really long time. That was fucking awesome. Strength is never weakness. Weakness is never strength. Catch y'all later.